Do you ever freeze up when someone offers you a drink? Are you worried that you're gonna sound lame or awkward saying no? I did too, until I discovered these tips that will make any social setting super easy. You know, saying no to a drink, it doesn't have to be weird, it doesn't have to be awkward, and these simple tips help me navigate social life so much easier. So listen along, I hope they help. Let me know in the comments what worked best for you. The first, just keep it simple. You know, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, you don't have to put so much pressure on it. Just like, no, I'm good. Or I'm not drinking tonight. And honestly, usually that'll be enough. You know, it's easy to go into these situations thinking, oh, this person's gonna say this person's gonna say this, or think this, or whatever. We usually blow things out of proportion in our head and make things way worse than they are. Just keep it simple. And if they press, just diffuse the situation. You know, a lot of times what I would do is you could diffuse by, well, in a few different ways. You could diffuse it with humor. You know, I would say things like, you know, my liver's taking the night off, or I don't want to feel like shit in the morning. Or sometimes I would say just something so ridiculous that it just completely, it's like funny, but it also completely just throws him off. I'd be like, oh, you know, I don't want to shit my pants. I don't want to shit my pants tonight. And that reaction I would get from that, like, you know, some people are like, what? But usually, you know, it threw him off enough to distract him from me not wanting to have a drink. And that was kind of it. You could also kind of diffuse it and flip it back towards, you know, the person who's asking you if you want to have a drink. So, you know, if they're like, hey man, you want to have a drink? No, I'm good. What are you drinking? And they'll start telling you about your drink, and then the conversation will just kind of carry on from there. Or ask them about something that you know that they're working on. And once they start getting on a roll of talking about themselves or whatever, you know, whatever project they got going on, that works really well too. You could also maybe already have a drink in your hand. Walk in with like maybe a water bottle, or if you're going into a party and maybe there's an ice chest full of drinks, just make a beeline for that, grab a drink that doesn't have alcohol, right? And that way it'll help with people asking you, hey, oh, let me get you a drink. Oh, you need a drink. Like, no, I'm good. I got this for now. Super simple, but very effective. You know, no one's gonna come up to you and press you to get a drink if you already have something in your hand. And you're just like, no, I'm good right now, I got this. You know, another thing you could do is just own it, you know? Don't beat around the bush. Like, look, I'm making a change. I'm not drinking. Just leave it at that. You know, they might ask you why, and you know, I mean, you could do whatever you want. You know, it depends on the person you're talking to. Is it worth explaining to them, or just like, you know, I'm just trying to live a little healthier right now, and you know, I'm not going to be drinking. Or let them know that you have some sort of engagement later on, or the next day, and you don't want to drink. These days, it's, you know, I just tell people, oh, I'm driving, because when I do go out with my wife or with friends, like, I always offer to drive. And, you know, it's like, yeah, I'm driving tonight. Go out to a Kings game, or go out to a concert and go up to the bar, and usually someone will order me a water, which is great. And a lot of times the bartenders will just give me the water for free. They're like, oh, that's cool, man. Thanks for getting your friends home safe. And it's all good. You know, you don't have to blow it up into this huge thing like, oh, Brett's not drinking, like, what the hell's going on? It's not a big deal. Although we do make it one in our heads, right? A lot of times when in the very beginning, I'd make it a point not to even go out to meet up with friends, because, and one of the reasons is, was because I didn't want to deal with having to explain myself, having to constantly turn down drinks, because, you know, it gets old after a while, you know? And so I would just completely avoid that altogether. You can also practice what you're gonna say, practice your lines beforehand. This could be practicing them in front of a mirror, practicing them with your boyfriend or girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever, friend, someone that you feel comfortable with saying these things. But it's important to say them out loud, get comfortable with what you're gonna say, and that way when you get into the social setting when someone's offering you a drink, you know, it cuts down on the awkwardness. When it just rolls off your tongue, it just makes things so much easier. And when you're going into these situations, a lot of times I would, you know, if my wife's like, hey, look, you wanna go to X, you wanna go over here, you wanna go to so-and-so's house, you know, I'd ask, you know, who's gonna be there? And the reason I did that is because I wanted to know what I was getting myself into in terms of, you know, there are gonna be people there that are gonna be giving me shit for not drinking, or is it gonna be in a, you know, an environment that I don't wanna be around? Because there's definitely gonna be people that in certain situations are gonna press you a little bit harder than others. And I was one of those people, you know. As soon as I got to a party, it was time to drink, and it was time to drink a lot. And if you weren't about that, I was letting you know that that wasn't okay. So I was that guy. So I know what it's like from both sides. And unfortunately, people like me exist out there just, come on, take a shot, come on, take a shot, like over and over until you finally give in. And like, that's just not an environment that I wanted to put myself in, that you should put yourself in. Especially, you know, it's hard enough in the beginning going out in public situations and, you know, drinking or not drinking and it's just hard. So know what you're getting yourself into, practice ahead of time, and, you know, use any of these tips because they all work. It just depends on which one, you know, works best for you. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. What is your go-to line when someone offers you a drink? I'd love to hear it. I'm sure others would as well. Thanks for stopping by. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you on the next one.